Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. We're entering part 4 of this epic remodel, and I'm just going to do a quick update. It's first thing in the morning. I've got to go pick up my mate Stasio, and this is the reason why. I'll address the giant orange elephant on the screen, I guess, a bit later on, but I want to recap on where we're at in part 4. So Stasio managed to get up a little bit more of this wall the other day right here. Boom. We're going to go up probably about to the height of that number on the address, all the way through. But as I mentioned or not mentioned in the video, we're going to leave this little section out so we can enter and still work on the project. So he's going to build this side up right here, get that up to the same height, and then we'll just fill in this section later on. We've got this slab in, and as I said to you, we've dropped down a couple inches. We've dropped down here, got the drain in, everything's looking pretty sweet there. And then inside, well, before I go in, remember the door pan's in, sealed with concrete now. That's pretty dang awesome. And we're in the bathroom right now. This is the shower pan, and what I'm going to be trying to tackle in this part, I've got to have a little disclaimer here. I keep saying I'm going to do this in parts, but the reality is I can't get it all done. If I'm saying I'm getting stuff done, or I'm projecting some project that I'm going to show you within a part, I do apologize if I don't get to it, because there's so much going on and all the filming and everything. It can be quite challenging to actually attain those tasks. Even though I like to project, you know, getting a lot done, it doesn't necessarily mean that happens. This is construction, and everybody knows construction can be quite challenging. But anyway, we've got the shower pan in. We have to waterproof these walls here, and then we can put what they call tile board on the walls before we set tile. Now there's a couple ways you can waterproof tile and tile board. The number one way is you can put plastic. It's a 6mm plastic, and you pop that on the wall prior to putting your tile board on, and that is an acceptable standard in the industry. And then if you want to go further and put another waterproofing membrane over the tile board, you can do that also. I prefer the plastic and straight tile. It's an easy process, it's acceptable, and it works. However, what I do is I put 2 layers of 6mm plastic on there, and I make a really good job of sealing the bottom so water doesn't migrate up. Now, I've done a lot of demo on bathrooms, and I can safely say that I haven't seen too many bathrooms rotting out with this process. The only time I see water really is in the pan, which is the floor, which migrates down into the liner and migrates into the drain. Now, that's totally acceptable. That's how it's designed to be. I haven't seen floors rotted out particularly. I haven't seen walls rotted out. So it really does work, these systems. And I'm going to stick with that system. So that's what I'm going to try and do in one of these upcoming parts. Might be in this part, might not be. However, what I really want to tackle on this one is getting this door in. We've had a giant opening to our house. Now, thankfully, we live in a very quiet and safe neighborhood. Totally cool. But I do want to get that door in. I want to get it all plastered in, painted, and just kind of at a finished point in the process. So it's kind of done, you know what I mean? We've got a window coming pretty soon, and we still haven't bashed that hole out for the window. I don't see any point in bashing it out because it's just another giant hole. I'd rather have the window sitting here ready to pop in. We'll knock out the hole, pop the window in, plaster it, job done. So that's where we're at. I'm going to go pick up my mate Stasio. He's going to carry on with the block. I'm going to try and get the door in and a bit of plastic on that shower. So hey, stay tuned. And listen, if you really do like what I'm doing, subscribe to my channel. Whoa, no button there. Subscribe to the little button down there, and there's a little bell you can push next to the subscribe button. Now, if you push that bell, you get notified every time I post a video. Now, since we're doing a series of videos, it's a good idea to get notified because we're into part 5, 6, and 7. Hey guys, so this is me getting ready to set a door jamb, and this is the jamb that I've purchased. Now, the door jamb is a pre-packaged set, and it comes with a header piece and 2 side rails. Oh, I've chosen this one, Everjam. There's a lot of different selections you can get, and you can also build your own. But what I found is it's actually cheaper to buy the pre-manufactured than to build your own. So I've got a pre-manufactured one. I'm going to open this up and see where we get to. So this door jamb apparently has a PVC bottom. Right here it says PVC bottom. So I'm assuming they've glued in a little bit of plastic on the bottom here. I'm actually not 100% sure what they're on about. And to be fair, I don't really care. I've hung thousands of jams and it's never had a PVC bottom before. So just to appease my insanity, because if I don't use the top of the jam and not the bottom of the jam, it'll probably drive me nuts for about 10 years. They're suggesting it's PVC on the bottom. I'll use it on the bottom, why not, eh? So this is the top right here. There's a couple things that we got to establish here. Hey, these things come out, they're weather stripping. It's good to just get rid of them, you don't need them. And then what ends up happening here, it's a little tricky to see, but you got this bump right here, and obviously I can't screw those together because we've got a gap right here. I'm not too sure if you can see in this. So what I've got to do, I've got to back cut this section so that sits flat in there like that. Now I know I have a 30-inch door, and what I'll do is I'll build the door jamb 30.25. Gives me hinge space and gives me a little bit of flexibility to be able to plane in the door if I need to. So my first job is get rid of this section, cut this to length. So I'm going to go do that and I'll come back in a second. So what I do is I line up the top like that, scribe my line. Now that section's got to go, and only that section's got to go. So what I'm going to do is also going to line up the opposite jamb here and use my combo square to scribe across these two. So I'll line them up like that. Put my square on there. Mark that side too. Now I know those two are going to fit the door, so I just put them together to double check before I cut, and then I'll take you over to the saw and cut these two. So we have to cut this little section out right here. I'm using this saw. Now this saw is going to go all the way down and cut through the wood, or I've got to be extremely careful. These saws come with a preset stop situation here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust this little stop in the back here, so I don't cut all the way through this, I'm only cutting through this. Then I can do series of cuts to take out this material and get ready to build the jamb. Now, you can do that with a handsaw and a chisel. Back in the old days, I would have done that with a handsaw and chisel, but we got these modern day saws, so I'm cool with using them. So I'll show you how to do that. I'm gonna probably speed up a little bit of this because I don't want to bore you with tons of cuts and stuff like that, okay? Alright guys, so we got that pretty much sorted out. And this is just an offcut of the header piece. And I can check it to see how that actually looks. And it looks really sweet. All tucked up in there, nice. The other one's exactly the same. So now I've got to get this length correct. And I have a threshold that I'm going to be using that I showed you, I believe, in part 2. Now the threshold's gone on this end and it's got a chamfer on it, and I've got a coping saw and get the angles correct for drainage and the floor heights and all that. Alright guys, so here we are. I've got the sample of the threshold, I've got a sample of the finished floor, and this is the subfloor that's got to go down. Now that sits right on the top of the jamb there, the dam should I say. And then this goes over that and lines up with my drywall right on the back side here. So now I got the perfect scenario to get my angle. So I just use an angle finder like this. Now that is the angle that I need to put on the jamb, and I also know that this is the height of the back side of my jamb, so I can measure up, cut these two to length on an angle, and scribe these sections in. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and show you that in a bit. So this has to go on an angle like this. What I did was I made my overall length mark, which was 80 1/4. I scribed a line. Then I used my angle finder to create the angle that's necessary for this piece to pop in. Then I've drawn the little lines in to be able to cut this on this profile right here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So you can kind of see that there's a little notch out there, and that is to fit that like that. That's how the door jamb ultimately sits. Now what I do is I'll pilot some holes and I'll screw up through this door jamb to fix it to the jamb, sorry, the door threshold to fix it to the jamb. Now it turns out this is PVC because I can smell the plastic as I'm cutting with the jigsaw. Now you don't really think about this, but I'm hoping my screws aren't going to have a problem setting into this. I'll use a real tight thread screw to go in there. I'm hoping this PVC is not going to mess me up. I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. I'm going to cut this threshold and I'll show you a little trick to that. So the threshold's got holes in it. Now in order to make this look good, right, I could measure from there, cut there, but the cut might be right on this screw hole and then everything's kind of set off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure from here to here, make a center mark, measure out and cut it, and that way the holes will be even on the threshold. It's a small thing that no one will ever notice but me, but it will drive me nuts if I don't do it. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the length of the threshold and then we'll start the assembly process, okay? Cool. Now I've cut the piece, and as you can see, there's only 1 and 2 holes in it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create, actually I might just leave that. I think 2 holes is enough because the jamb's so close to here that it's going to be fixed here anyway. Yeah, so there you go. I'm just going to leave those 2 holes, but the piece is cut. I'm going to go into the garage, do some assembly. Alright guys, I'm going to start setting this jamb right here. I'm going to attach it to here. I'm using a tapered pre-drill bit. It's got a 3/8 boring plug bit on it and a tapered drill bit. Now what that does is when it goes in here, it helps create a little bit of space in the wood so the screw doesn't snap the wood. In an ideal situation, every single hole goes like this. Sometimes these don't work out so good, but we're going to give it a go. I'm going to pre-drill those holes into the threshold like I explained to you earlier, and then I'll set it. Okay, so the threshold's been screwed on. I'll show you what I did. Pretty straightforward. You look over this side, and it's a very clean scenario right here, looking pretty tight. I'm gonna go over here and pop it in, see how we fared, eh? Alright my friends, I haven't fixed the door jamb yet, but I've just gently placed it in so you guys can see it. Remember what I have to do, I've got to silicone those heads of the screws of the pans and the joints on that pan before I install this, but I just wanted to check, see if it was fit. I'll check. I will show you how this looks. Here's your pan. I'm trying to get better light for you guys. There's the pan. Threshold goes onto the finished flooring like that, and it is very solid and accurate, looking pretty clean. And then this flashing that goes over this to be able to cement this in comes out to about here, so all this comes onto a little profile right there and comes out of there. And you know, I'll silicone down in through these areas. I won't silicone that because if water does travel in, it can migrate back out again. So I am going to start the process of installing this jamb after I've got that silicone in. Time for a little bit of silicone around these areas. Now this is Dow Corning 795. This is the type of silicone that you see around all the industrial window frames in industrial complexes or industrial units, and on modern contemporary homes they silicone the windows in. That's the material right there. Dow Corning 795, one of the best in the business. Now there's a couple basic rules to hanging a door jamb. I'll tell you some of my tips that I do for this process. So, number one rule, this has to be level. It's just the number one rule. If you get the head level, you're starting off at a good foundation. The floors might be out of level, everything could be out of level, you can shim all the bottoms and everything like that, but get that top level. The second thing is, make sure you have equal spacing on both sides of the jamb to be able to shim your jamb over to level the sides. If that's fixed and it's level, all you have to do is move this over on the bottom, getting level from A to B, shim in the middle. It's a done deal. Now in my opinion, there's two really difficult things in home building: setting staircases and setting doors to make them look good. Now you can set a door and it can look pretty rubbish. Now I do all my own door hanging, everything's pre-hung these days. I'm not a big fan of it unless we're knocking out some really cheap product, which I don't generally do. I'm more of a high-end finish guy. So I hang my own doors, I set my own hinges, set my own locks, and I do all that type of stuff. And then I'm guaranteed waterproof pans, sealed doors, nice and tight fitting doors that open and close without sticking and rubbing and become a pain in the butt. So I'm going to set this jamb, hyperspeed it for you, and then we'll go on to doing the door. Now there is another tip for doing this. I don't set the jamb fully. I set the head and I tuck some shims in. Once I've bored the holes for my hinges in my doors and in the jamb, I'll come over and swing the door, and just to see what's happening, because if I go shooting off this jamb and for some reason the top bore hole is a little bit more than the bottom bore hole on the hinges and the door racks over, I still have the ability to move the jamb around on the bottom right here to be able to compensate for the door maybe leaning over. It's a constant game of shimming, taking shims out, putting shims in, hanging door, pulling the door off, if you want to do it right. So I'm going to go ahead and just gently tack this up. I won't waste the video on it, but we'll go straight on to boring holes in the door and the jamb. Then we'll swing it and I'll show you the adjustments that we make with shims and various different little tips and tricks. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just temporarily tack that up. Alright, so this is my door. Now I don't do anything to the door other than put a backplane on it straight away. I don't look at it, I don't cut it to length or any of that good stuff. I backplane the edge, and I'll explain what that means in a second. This is a planer with a stop guide on it. This guide goes on the door and helps it so it doesn't fall off, right? Now what I do, and most carpenters do, is put a little hard to see, but put a backplane on it. In other words, I put this on a slight angle, so when I plane the door and hold that flush to that, it puts a slight angle on the door. So we backplane this to stop any binding on the door, okay? So that's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to get on it now, okay? Now in the last shot, you saw me planing, and that plane, see the little gap under the square there? That's backplaying that door on an angle just slightly like that. I also did a couple things. I sanded the face edge. I put a little round over on this edge and a round over on this edge. I don't know if you can see it. A couple reasons for that. These doors can be extremely splinterous, so if you're running your hands along them while you're setting hinges and stuff, I've done it so many times, got splinters in there. And it also helps out for tearing while you're handling the door. You don't want to tear wood out if you're gripping it and pulling it. Always happens, tearing out. Anyway, I'm going to set up the door jig and start routering out for the hinges. Alright guys, getting ready to router this out. I've got a few things to show you. I'm going to be using a 3.5 inch hinge. It's a pretty solid one. You can get these pretty much any hardware store. This one's a Home Depot product. And I'm going to set 3 of these in this door. This right here is a router template for the hinges. Now I know the hinges need to be set like here. This has little stops underneath it preset, and I can show you here. You can see the 1 3/4. So that's the thickness of the door, and there's another one down there. And you set those at 1 3/4 for an 1 3/4 door, then those stops stop it where it needs to go, so you don't over route. I got 3 of them set at 3.5. All I got to do is screw this down. Now it has this little tab on the end, which is really cool. And this tab will eventually go onto the jamb, and it gives you this 1/8 inch space between the header of the jamb and the door. So that's a cool little thing, and it goes back like that once you put it on a jamb, or if you don't want to use it, it's got a little spring on it. Pretty cool. This is a universal hinge template by Denpo. You used to be able to buy these plastic ones for like 10 bucks at Home Depot. They were so good. I used mine for 10 years. And this is like $130 made of wood. The plastic one was way better for 10 bucks, but I broke it, went through it. 10 years of hanging doors. They don't last. Next thing is the router. The router has a little collar on it, and that collar hits the edges of the template and doesn't allow you to route into the template. Now you need to set the router depth to the thickness of the hinge plate. I'm not going to show you all that. I'm just going to speed up the router process. You pretty much figure that out if you're hanging a door, right? But listen, if you got any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section. I'll answer them for you. Alright, so there you have it. I've routed out the hinges. I just pop those in there. Bada boom. I just put 2 screws in each one, because hinges tend to come on and off, so 2 screws set the hinge, but you don't bore out the holes by taking the hinges on and off all the time for painting and various stuff like that. I'm going to go over and route the door jamb out, and then we'll set the door and see how we look. Right, I've set the hinges in the door jamb right here. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to get ready to bring the door in. Now, there's a couple of things. The door's pretty heavy. I haven't secured the bottom of the jamb down here, so if I swing the door, I'm just going to push that jamb out. I'm going to set this generally level with 1 screw in the bottom. Then I can always shim the door up on the door here, sorry, on the floor here, shim it up to not let the weight drop in there while I'm establishing the levels and all that good stuff. So I'm going to go pop a little screw down in that jamb. I'll grab the door, swing it, and we'll see where we're at, okay? So now I've got the door pinned on 1 hinge right here. And I can see I got a nice healthy gap going on up there, so I'm pretty golden. Now I've got to figure out my cut for the door right here. And you can see it's leaning against the threshold right there. So now I can project this line up, make a mark for my cut on the door, depending on the weather stripping that I'm using. Now I'm going to use a full bottom cap weather strip. Now their standard is about 1/2 inch, so I'm going to trim 1/2 inch above that threshold to accommodate my rubber seal and weather stripping. So I'm going to pop the door off, go cut it, bring it back and swing it for good. Okay guys, I have to say it's good to see a door in the hole right here. So if you remember, I pegged one screw in there. And what you look at is an even reveal down through the door here where the hinges are, and then you want to create an even reveal here. You can see I've put a wedge in there. As soon as I take that wedge out, this jam's flapping around because the jam hasn't been set. We got a really nice reveal at the head here, and I don't ever like to crowd the heads or the side profiles where the door's going. A buddy of mine once told me, he said, listen, you never get a cool back for a big gap, but you'll always get cool back for a sticky door. And I've lived by that motto ever since. It's always good to give yourself plenty of room between the door and the jam all the way around. Otherwise, you get a little rain, swells, get a little heat, shrinks, starts to walk, bow, move around, starts to work against you. Now this is an exterior door and it has weather stripping all the way around it. So I don't really worry about the gaps so much. I'm not going to be over nuts with a massive gap because it doesn't look as clean, but I'm going to be pretty precise on getting a nice, even, semi-large reveal around the door, because doors swell, trust me. We're in Arizona as well, so it's dry as dry can be during the summer, and guess what, winter comes, rain, snow, everything starts to suck up a bit of water and start swelling, and that's pretty common on East Coast England and all these various places. On an interior door, I'd pay a little bit more attention to getting really sharp, clean reveals around the door and the door jamb, but exterior, I'd not worry about it too much. There's a couple things you got to notice right here. This sits really flush right here, super clean, right? And it's also sitting really super clean here. Now that just happened to be happenstance. I set the jam temporarily exactly where I thought it would be, looking pretty decent. It turns out it worked out exactly how I wanted it to do. So all I've got to do is basically start securing it, shimming it and creating the reveals, and that's what I'm going to do in a second, and we'll fix everything and make it solid and get a really good swinging door. Cool. Alright guys, the door is in, jam set, everything's golden. All I've got to do is trim off the hinges here, sorry, the shims, trim these off and everything is set. It's looking really good, nice reveals around here. So we'll look from the outside, see how it looks. Looking very sweet. Now, I'm going to be putting what they call stucco molding here, and it's a metal flashing that I'm going to use, and I'm going to set it all the way around the frame ready for stucco. Hopefully it works out, because stucco's all over the place from the old patched window that they had, and the framing's all over the place, everything's all over the place for remodels on older homes, so fingers crossed we'll get that good. Catch up with you. So we got the door jamb in, all looking pretty good. I'm going to show you what I did with the outside real quick before I go into the next thing. Put this flashing in all the way around. Did a little trick here, bent this up. I'm going to cork in all through here, all around there. But basically that's ready for plaster. Alrighty folks, that is the end of part 4. I've felt pretty good about that little section there, getting the door jamb in and the door in. You know, we've had an open hole in our house for about 3 weeks. It's finally closed up and feeling pretty good about that. sorry for over promising, telling you I'd get the plastic in on the shower, but you know, there's only so much editing and so much video and you can do in one thing before it goes on too long. I certainly don't want to bore you with you know, like a 45-minute video. I think that's a bit too much, so I'm kind of hitting the mark around 20 to 29 minutes on my videos, so I hope they're not too long. And listen, if I'm waffling a little bit too much, leave a comment, just put waffle. That's all you need to do, and I will stop waffling and give you a bit more hyper speeding of what I'm doing. But I just feel it necessary to show you a couple tips and tricks about what I'm doing. But the ultimate goal of these videos is to show you the whole process. So waffle is waffle, so if I'm waffling, let me know. Anyway, we got part 5 coming up in about 10 to 14 days, so whack on the subscribe button down here, hit the little bell to get notified, and if you hit that little bell, your phone will ding, you get a notification of the next video that I've posted, and you can jump on and watch that. Also leave some comments down below if you feel like it, any suggestions for how I'm shooting the videos, always appreciated, because I haven't got a clue what I'm doing. I'm just shooting a video and editing the best as I can. So hey, anyone got any great suggestions, go ahead and knock yourself out, give me some comments, I'd appreciate it. And what's the other thing? Oh yeah, if you got any mates that you think might enjoy this, share the video, that's always a nice treat. I'd certainly appreciate it. It's a lot of work going into not only the work but the videoing and the editing, so it's nice to get some shares or what have you. Anyway, listen, check out part 5 coming up in 10 to 14 days, and I'll catch up with you on that one. I sincerely hope you enjoyed this episode, or part 4, and you guys have a good one, eh? I'll catch you up on the next part. Cheers.